I need to tell you something that most men will never hear from a doctor. There is a specific position, backed by real research, that gives women the highest chance of reaching climax. And there is another position that almost every man defaults to that has the lowest success rate of any position studied. I know both of those answers from experience, as a urologist and as a woman. I have spent over a decade in practice having the most honest, intimate conversations with patients about what actually happens in the bedroom, not what people pretend happens, what actually happens. And recently I did something a little unconventional. After reading a fascinating study on sexual positions and female pleasure, I invited 7 of my female patients over for wine. We opened a few bottles, got comfortable, and had one of those raw, completely honest conversations about sex that women only have when they feel truly safe. No filters, no embarrassment, just truth. What they told me matched the science almost perfectly. So today, I am sharing everything. The research, the real stories from real women, and the one surprising twist at the end that nobody in that room saw coming, including me. Stay with me until the end, because the last part is the most important of all. Let's start with the first position the study confirmed works, and works consistently. Missionary, with a pillow under her hips. Before you roll your eyes, hear me out. Because this is not really about the position. It is about understanding why it works, and most men completely miss this. When I brought this up with my patients, every single one of them nodded before I even finished the sentence. One of them, married 15 years, knows her body better than anyone, said this is her absolute go-to when she genuinely wants to finish. Here is what is happening physically. When you place a pillow underneath her hips, her pelvis tilts upward. That changes the angle of contact between your body and hers in a way that creates something researchers call dual stimulation. And this is the thing most men do not understand. The vast majority of women cannot reach climax from penetration alone. They need clitoral stimulation. What this position does, especially with the pillow, is allow your pubic bone to make consistent contact with her clitoris while penetration is happening at the same time, both simultaneously. That combination is what the research pointed to. That combination is what my patients confirmed. But here is the part where most men go completely wrong. They think it is about thrusting. Faster, harder, deeper. It is not. The key is grinding, staying deep inside her and rocking your hips forward, creating consistent pressure and friction against her clitoris, rather than moving in and out. One of my patients said most men miss this entirely. She said the men who understand the grinding motion are in a completely different category from those who do not. And the rhythm matters too. Slow and deliberate builds far more effectively than fast and erratic. Fast thrusting breaks the buildup she needs. Grinding sustains it. There is also something else this position does that the science confirmed, and every woman in that room agreed with. It creates emotional connection. You are face to face, looking at each other. She can see your eyes, your expression, whether you are truly present with her or somewhere else mentally. And for women, that emotional component is not separate from the physical experience. It amplifies it. One of my patients described it perfectly. She said when her husband looks at her a certain way during intimacy, it is like her entire body becomes more sensitive. The emotional connection literally heightens the physical sensation. That is not poetry. That is physiology. And the research confirmed it. The second position the study highlighted is when she is on top, but leaning forward towards your chest. When I mentioned this one of my patients laughed and said this is the only position where she has complete control over exactly what she needs, and that is precisely the point. In this position, she controls the angle, the depth, the rhythm, and, most critically, the clitoral pressure. She can grind against your pubic bone in exactly the way that works for her specific anatomy. Because here is something the study pointed out that many people overlook. Every woman's body is slightly different. The anatomy varies. What works perfectly for one woman may not work the same way for another. When she is on top leaning forward, she removes all the guesswork. She finds exactly what her body needs and takes it. Now, I know some men feel like they are just lying there passively in this position. like they are not doing anything. Here is what my patient said about that. When you grab her hips firmly and pull her into you, with intention, with desire, with that energy that says, I want you, it completely transforms the experience. Even though she is technically in the dominant position, you are still actively leading. You are still showing her that you are fully present and want her. That matters enormously. Women want to feel desired even when they are the ones in control of the movement. Grabbing her hips with that intentional energy, running your hands across her body, looking up at her, pulling her down for a deep kiss. All of that maintains the emotional connection that amplifies everything she is physically feeling. One of my patients mentioned that when her partner whispers to her in this position, tells her how good she feels, how beautiful she looks, it intensifies everything. That verbal affirmation, combined with the physical sensation, creates something incredibly powerful. Now, before I get to the part that surprised everyone in that room, I need to say something about something that impacts every single thing we have talked about. Blood flow, no matter how perfect your technique is, no matter which position you are in, if blood is not flowing properly to the genitals, arousal becomes significantly more difficult. For both men and women, most people know this applies to men. Far fewer realize it applies equally to women. The clitoris actually becomes erect when aroused. It fills with blood just like the penis does. When that blood flow is restricted, whether from stress, poor cardiovascular health, or the natural decline of nitric oxide production that comes with age, arousal is harder, sensitivity is reduced, and climax becomes far less achievable. Nitric oxide is what allows your blood vessels to relax and dilate so blood can flow freely. As we age, our natural production of it declines. This is not talked about nearly enough, but it directly impacts sexual function and pleasure in both partners. Technique matters. Position matters. But never overlook the fundamentals. Cardiovascular health, sleep quality, stress management, hydration, nutrition. These are not separate from your intimate life. They are the foundation of it. All right, here is the part that made that whole evening with my patients unforgettable. The study also looked at which position was least likely to result in female climax. When I read the finding, I was genuinely surprised because it is actually my personal favorite, doggy style. According to the research, this position had the lowest rate of women reaching climax compared to any position they studied. When I mentioned this to my patients, 6 out of 7 immediately agreed. They said yes, it feels intense, it is exciting, it is raw and passionate, but they almost never finish from it. And then I told them something that caught them off guard. It is still my favorite position, even knowing I am very unlikely to climax from it. Let me explain why. Because this is the most important thing I want you to take away from everything I have shared today. The study identified 2 reasons why women rarely climax in doggy style. First, there is no face-to-face connection. The emotional amplifier is removed. Second, and this is the bigger issue, the clitoris receives no natural stimulation whatsoever in this position. The angle simply does not create that contact. Unless you specifically reach around with your hand to provide it manually, both key ingredients for female climax are missing at the same time. So scientifically, it makes complete sense. But here is what I want you to understand. A position does not have to produce climax to be deeply valuable. Doggy style offers something no other position replicates. It is primal. It is raw. It creates a psychological intensity, a feeling of complete vulnerability and desire that is unlike anything else. I love it for exactly that reason, not despite knowing I will not finish from it, but with full knowledge of what it is and what it offers. One of my patients said her partner understands this perfectly. He will start with something intense, build that raw, passionate energy. And then when the time is right, he transitions smoothly into one of the positions that will actually get her there. She said it makes him an exceptional lover. Another patient described it best. She said the men who are truly good in bed understand that sex is like a journey with different chapters. You do not want every chapter to feel the same. The variety, the transitions, the different intensities, That is what makes the whole experience genuinely memorable. Seen. And so here is your practical framework. Use missionary with the pillow and her on top, leaning forward as your foundation, your go-to positions when you are ready for her to finish. Master the grinding technique. Engage actively with your hands and your presence. Never confuse depth or speed with what actually works. Use positions like doggy style for passion, intensity, variety to build desire and keep the energy raw and exciting. Move between them intentionally. You are not randomly switching positions. You are crafting an experience with a beginning, a middle, and an ending. Start with intensity. Build connection and desire. Read her body, her breathing, her movements, the sounds she makes. When you sense her building toward something, that is your cue. Transition into the positions that will get her there. And remember the most important thing of all. This is not about mechanics. It is not about technique or positions or grinding angles. It is about being present. It is about making her feel genuinely desired, truly seen, completely wanted. When a woman feels that, when the emotional connection is real, everything else becomes infinitely more powerful. That is what the research showed. That is what every woman in that room confirmed. And now you know it too.